MFJ-1846 6-band Hex Beam antenna. Okay, I want to talk about a little bit about the quality, and then later on about the customer service that my friend received by MFJ regarding some problems we had with this antenna. So let me start out first saying, in my opinion, this antenna is the components, I would say, is very low quality. There's a saying, you get what you pay for, but close to $600 with shipping. Yeah, I do not think that my friend got what he paid for. He got way less than he paid for. But that's subjective, or some people may think it's a great deal. We don't think so. So that's why I'm making this video. So we just want to simply share the experience what we had. Let's start with the center post, and I'm going right to the top of it, where the top plate, this is a little plastic, looks like an oversized washer. It appears like it's 3D printed, very thin. It doesn't appear to be very strong, and the supplied Dacron line to hold the individual support rods up. The way the manual says, you basically cut the line to 129 inches each, and then put it through the holes on that center plate, and then secure it with zip ties that they had supplied in the bag. Well, I use zip ties a lot because they come in handy for, especially when you do lots of wiring and stuff. One thing I know, zip ties do not very well in UV light. So given the fact that, well, this antenna is going to be installed outside, needless to say, this is Florida, and the Florida sun, if they last one summer, that would be surprising. So with other words, they're going to be deteriorating, and they're going to break, and then the lines are going to come loose. So that's going to have to be changed, but that's not the point here right now. So then going down the center post, those are the active rods that feed the active elements, which in theory there's not much wrong with it. Again, those spacers, of course, again, those black spacers, they seem to be 3D printed. Don't know how long they last, but probably not very long. But again, not a big problem as for at this point. Here's a point where there's a problem. We kind of temporarily cut a piece of PCV pipe to hold the active elements in the position they should be, because according to the manual, the active elements, they should on the lowest position be 2 inches above this black collar that basically holds the center support beam. So this is this white piece of PCV plastic. Sorry, it's not the greatest looking one. It's just a temporary quick fix, just to get it somewhere in where it's supposed to be. But there was no fixing point in this kit. So if it wouldn't be for that PCV plastic, the active rods, it would just simply slide down. Nothing would hold them in place. You can't just drill holes through them and bolt them into the center post, because that could severely screw up the SWR. So let me see if I can find this on the manual. So according to this manual, you can clearly see it's supposed to be 2 inches above this support. Yet in this kit there was nothing in there that would hold them up. No provision, no markings, no nothing. They could have just supplied some kind of a collar that goes between it, but nothing was there. So we'll figure it out and did some temporary fix to it. So now this center piece that consists out of two individual stamped aluminum plates, which are rather thin, and the way the extension rods are in there, they're basically sandwiched between it. So there's nuts and bolts being attached to it all the way through. If you put them in there too loose, they're gonna wiggle around, maybe loosen themselves up. If you put them in there too tight, you may crush them. So not the best type of engineering, but I don't want to harp on it too much, because again, you get what you pay for. That is certainly not something that what I would do. It's just what they decided to do. So here's how the active elements or passive elements, regardless, all the cables are attached to the spreaders. It's a simple plastic or retainer, what have you, with a sheet metal screw screwed in there. And again, I would almost be, I'm almost certain those things are not going to be doing too well in the Florida sun. They're going to deteriorate and they're going to break, and then the wires come loose. Okay, now the wires itself, they're extremely thin. I mean, there is any thinner than that and they probably would rip off. Yes, it will work, but Jesus, really? Talking about cutting corners, right? I mean, look at this. I mean, this is nothing. I would say this is maybe an 18 gauge at best. Okay. Yeah, it works. It still carries the RF signals, but yeah, wouldn't prefer to put a little bit thicker wires on there. So, and this one here is probably one of the worst parts I found, where this Dacron cable is attached to the end of those rods. There is no hoop or anything, or hook or anything. They simply supply 6 nylon nuts with whatever regular threads, and you're supposed to just, I guess, twirl this Dacron wire around it and just basically jam that nut into the rod. So if you have to take it off, well, you probably can't take it out anymore because it's kind of jammed in there now. And so readjusting this thing is yeah, well, almost impossible. We did have to readjust it, so I had to cut the wire ties, and now I put some white ones on it. The ones I had laying around makes no difference anyways. They're all gonna go to hell very soon. But yeah, they didn't even bother putting any kind of decent clamps on there. Just simply take a nylon nut, jam it in the end of the pipe, and there you go, and secure again the end of this Dacron rope with zip ties. Okay, so yeah, that's that. Okay, so overall, I helped my friend putting this antenna together, and he did call customer service a couple of times. The cables for the 20-meter band were completely off. The two active elements or feed elements, those cables were, after we found out, they were supposed to be 218 inches long each. One was about 15 inches too long, the other one almost 20 inches too long. So we had to remeasure them and cut them to the correct length. The reflector cable, on the other hand, was a little bit too short, so I kind of had to we had to attach this reflector cable at a little bit lower parts of those the supporting rods. So my friend called MFJ and just simply asked them to send him a replacement for the incorrect parts, and MFJ said sure, they can send him the replacement, but yet they wanted to get paid for it again for something they did wrong. So needless to say, my friend declined, and he's just gonna deal with it the way it is, and it's gonna be the last time that he buys an antenna from MFJ. I know that for certain. So we checked the SWR after everything was put together. It's, for the most part, it's pretty much in specs what they're claiming. I have no complaints about that. 20-meter band is slightly off. It's a 1 to 1.7 in the center of the phone band. Yeah, and we'll put an antenna tune on, and so that shouldn't be big of a problem. I believe by their specification they're claiming an SWR of 1 to 1.4. But I'm not saying nothing about this right now, because the antenna is also fairly low to the ground right now. Once it's up on the mast, we'll see. I do not believe this antenna is going to last very long. There's, of course, you know, there's ways to replace some of those rather cheap parts and put better parts on there. The measurements, of course, they're correct. You know, there's nothing, I have no complaints about that. So it could be improved, but what's the point? You know, if we would have known that, we could have built a whole antenna completely from scratch, right from the get-go. It appears like the hardware they randomly picked out of the shelves from some hardware store and throw it together, whatever they could find cheapest. The insulating rods, they're using just simply nuts and bolts to mount them on the ring terminals for the active and to separate the active and the active elements from the reflectors. That could have been done better. Maybe some kind of a, I don't know, maybe quick connectors, or more in a fixed soldered on one end at least, you know. But that's a matter of interpretation. So as far as for the what I mentioned earlier, the top part, the center post where those Dacron wires are attached to, this is kind of really a strange system, the way they build it. They're supplying the top part, which is looks like an oversized washer. Again, it looks to me like it's 3D printed. It may not be, I don't know, but it just appears that way. And then there's several spacer washers and a long stainless steel nut and bolt, and 3 nylon lock washers, and then they're kind of being put together really in a strange way, and that's been jammed in there. They could have just put a bushing that fits right into there and have some kind of a more decent hookups up on the top. Yeah, I think they just put this kit together really as cheap as possible. My estimation, probably the most expensive part is probably the aluminum plates. The rest, I don't know. Oh yeah, the fiberglass rods. I advise, if you put this antenna together, wear some gloves, because I had so many fiberglass splinters in my hands, it's not even funny anymore, because this is like the roughest type of fiberglass rods you can just about imagine. Probably would be a good idea to just paint them before handling them. Okay, anyway, so I'm not going to make this any longer. That's my opinion. That's my and my friend's personal opinion. Other people may think different. In my humble opinion, I would not recommend it. at least not for the money. If they would sell that thing, let's say for 200 bucks, maybe 250 bucks, I can see that, yes. It's just something you throw together, use for a year, a couple of years, but not close to $600. I don't see it. I mean, you spend a couple $100 bucks more and you probably get something that's much more decent and probably last longer. Not this thing. Okay, well, like always, thank you for watching. I hope I can help a few people making a decision whether they want to tackle this or not. But if you, of course, if you had good experience with it, well, then that's your experience, not my friends and my experience. Again, thank you for watching. Till next time. Okay, Garnet, let's start. So you bought this MFJ-1846 6-band Hex Beam antenna, and when you got the antenna and I helped you unpacking it, the first we noticed there was some loose parts laying around.
Right,
you know,
this plastic bag was busted and nuts and bolts and screws.
They were just all over the place, you know. So there were some of them, they were individually packed and labeled, others they were not, you know.
Others were not.
So they were just laying around, like somebody just threw it in completely careless into this box, you know. So we sorted it all out, you know, and we finally got all the cables sorted out, and so we found out that several of the cables for the individual bands, they didn't have the ends even crimped on. They were laying around.
They were just laying in the bag.
They were laying in the bag. So we put this on, you know, and then we started assembling it, and it was a little bit convoluted, this whole manual. And so in the end we figured out, and there was one issue with the center post where the feed elements, it would show that
They're supposed to be 2 inches above.
2 inches above the
collar.
The collar, the pedestal, you know. So one of the biggest thing in this manual we encountered that there was basically where the feed elements were supposed to be secured on the center post, there was nothing to basically retain it for keeping it 2 inches above what they wanted to mount.
Right, 2 inches above.
So what we did basically, we'll manufacture something to hold it in place. You know, it's
we had to make do with what we had.
It's a temporary measure, but we had no other choice. You know, did something. You know, so then the next day you called MFJ. And because of this issue, and you basically wanted to talk to some kind of a technical advisor.
I talked to 2 different people, I think, that day. I did not get their names.
Mm-hmm.
I brought that issue to them. I said, I cannot find anything in this kit that's made to hold those feed points 2 inches above the collar.
Correct.
And both of them said, I don't know.
So they're basically
they had no idea.
Pleaded ignorance.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time I talked to them, except for the last time, or the last 2 times, I got a hold of people that just did not know and did not care.
So customer support was, in your opinion, non-existing?
Non-existent.
Okay. Let me ask you something. How much was the total that you paid for this antenna?
I won't get the shipping and everything else, but it was $590 something for the.
$590.
Yeah, $590, $595, something like that.
Right,
I don't have the.
Yeah.
But it was expensive.
Yeah.
And the thing that had sold me on it was, or one of the things that sold me on it, I watched one of the YouTubers, I won't mention his name.
Mm-hmm.
He put it together. Now it was given to him by MFJ. He put it together and really had no real problems with it from what I could see when he was putting it together.
Correct.
And I was trying to figure why we was having so much problems. Well, then I watched the video again and paid closer attention.
Mm-hmm.
He did not get the same hex beam that I got.
So he got different
His had
hardware or
a,
stuff
right,
like that?
the feed points had a place to rest on.
Oh, okay.
The top, instead of having that little plastic thing that stuck
Right.
down in there,
Mhm.
his was set up different. And I think he even had hooks supplied.
Had real
to hook
hooks,
it.
not just the bands.
Not just the
cable.
bands.
Right. Mhm.
And several things.
Mhm.
You know, he did not get. I did not get the same hex beam that he got.
So did it appear to you that he was given that hex beam by MFJ, so he gives a good review? Is that a possibility?
I won't say he was, because the
Uh-huh.
guy usually gives a fairly honest. But like I say, he didn't have anything to complain with.
Okay.
It was a different hex beam.
It was different hardware and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it was put.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
all the things were there. Everything he needed was there.
Even though it was the same number, the same
number,
model number.
same
everything.
numbers.
Mhm.
The 6-band.
Okay.
And same deal, but
Yeah.
it was a totally different, as far as I'm concerned, a totally different hex beam.
Okay.
And that's the reason why he gave it a good grade, was that, hey, he put it, him and his neighbor, and he
Sure.
done most of it, him and his neighbor put the thing together in like a day or 2 days. We were 5 days trying to get this thing put
Right.
together.
Right. Yep. And we did it with two
And we
people.
worked on it.
We both put our heads together.
Yeah,
And it didn't seem like either we were completely stupid or there's something we just really
the
don't get.
same word. It's like the 20-meter band
Mhm.
was probably, what, 5 inches too long?
Yeah. So speaking about that, so we got everything assembled, or for better or for worse, from the 6-meter up to the 17-meter band. Well, at first we noticed the 17-meter band seemed to be much tighter.
Was a little tighter than
the
I
other
thought
ones,
it
you know.
should be, but
So, but we'll set it aside and said, okay, maybe we'll stretch out. It probably wouldn't affect much.
Right.
But when we put the 20-meter band on there, the first thing is the insulators that insulate separate the reflector from the active bands. It seems to be going far beyond the rods, the
yeah,
support rods.
the wire was way too long.
So the active beam wires, they were too long. So
Yeah.
so the next day, then you called MFJ again.
And that's the only time that I got a guy that seemed to know fairly well what he was doing. I told him about the 20-meter band,
Mhm.
and he gave me, I don't have it handy with me, but he gave me the measurements, and we put it, you know, on steel tape.
Right.
We stretched it out, checked it out, and I wasn't on the end cutting, but I think you cut off about, what, 6 inches off
Yeah,
of it?
there was actually two different lengths. You know, one
Right.
was at least 10 inches too long. The other one was probably 15 inches too long.
Yeah, and
So-
there was, I don't know whether they sent us the wrong band or what they done, but that was, you know, tough. And then,
Correct.
so then we had to find ring clips or connectors
Correct.
to put them on there,
On there,
and
right.
you know, instead of the ones that they supplied, we had to get what we had
Correct.
and put it on there, and we got it up fairly well. And as soon as I get it on the tower totally and everything, because the SWR is not totally great,
It's
but
not
it could
great,
be
but
from
but
the
it's
fact
it's
that
okay.
it's sitting down on the ground.
Right.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt on that. When I put it up on the pole,
We'll see.
we'll know.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, if I were going to buy another hex beam antenna, I would wait a while and get my pennies together, and I would get the more expensive ones, because they're set up. I mean,
Yep.
you know, they're made to put together, and they were not the
Correct.
you know, the little things that what got me was
Right.
the bag being busted open in the box.
Mhm.
They had the 2 or 3 of the meter bands, you know, the ends, the little end pieces, I don't know what you call them, circle,
Right. The little loops in the end. They were-
ring
they're-
pieces.
they're-
I
yeah.
mean, it wasn't like it they had
The
put
ring
them on
connectors.
and crimped them and they slid off. They
No,
never
but
put them
They
on.
never put them on because there was not even solder.
Right,
like
they
the
weren't
others
they weren't
were.
soldered and
Right.
they weren't crimped.
Correct.
one single bit. So that was
Right.
just one of them, oh, we'll throw that in there and worry about it. Just too much a thing that they had no quality control.
That's what I was just about
Nobody
to say.
checked
Right.
it. Nobody, when they got that thing ready to box up and send to me, nobody went through there and said, okay, no, wait a minute, this band ain't right.
Correct.
We need a different band. Or, you know, why is these terminals loose
Yep.
and laying in the bag? Why aren't they put on there?
Right.
If there's a reason for what that the two rods,
The insulator rods.
insulator rods, somebody should have known about that.
Well,
Now on the other guys, I can't remember whether his collar was high, but he had a place to lock them down in.
yep.
When he pulled them down there, we had the same basic holders on it, went up, but when he got through, it set down
Set down. Yeah.
and on something. This had nothing.
No, it had nothing to do. So basically, you could slide those.
Yeah, they slid all the way down and
Right.
it touched the base.
So basically, if they would have just put another column over it, you know, a collar over it, they could have held it in place, which was
Sure.
not there. There was also, you know, what we noticed, there was not even anything pre-drilled where you could attach anything.
No.
So it was just out of,
No, it
okay,
was just, they were just a
Right.
blank space in there. And they were saying on their instruction manual, they showed it. You know, they showed the collar
correct.
and 2 inches up to the connecting
Correct.
rods.
But not,
And,
not
but
to fix
nothing
it.
to put them on. You know, like I said, nothing drilled out for them
Yep.
that would have held something on there.
Right.
I don't know what the reasoning for was, but it was just, to me, I think it was a very poorly gathered up stuff and very poorly
Executed.
executed. And if there was any quality control before that thing left that shop, I did not see any evidence of that.
I think this thing was just randomly thrown together.
I think somebody got in a hurry and it was done on a Friday afternoon or
Right.
something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it was shoddy work.
And so as far as the hardware, from what I personally know, is it looked to me like the hardware was just random hardware that they sent somebody to a local hardware store
Yeah.
and tell them, look, get the cheapest set of screws and bolts and whatever we can put this thing together with and just throw it in as a set, you know.
Yeah.
You know, there's a saying, you get what you pay for, and because the reason why you initially choose this antenna because the limited budget you had,
Right,
and it was the cheapest on the market, but nevertheless, there still has to be a price to value ratio.
Yeah.
And I think, in my opinion, you didn't get what you paid for. You
Yeah,
got
I
way
mean,
less
the
for what you paid
stuff
for.
that they done, I mean, that little collar, that could have been put in there for nothing.
For nothing,
basically.
correct, correct.
The crimping of the ends, that should have been done. That was part of building the antenna.
Of course.
And a lot of little odd and end things should have been part of building it.
Right.
You know, it just looked like they hired the guy that morning and sent out there and said, here's a
list of stuff and just throw something together.
yeah, put this,
Yep.
this is what
Yep.
you need to go find. And he went through the shop and probably couldn't find half of it, just took what he wanted. I mean, whatever the reason was, I have no idea
Yep.
what the reasoning
Yep.
was. But it was not, there was no quality. The biggest thing is a good quality control person
Would have
knew
caught
what
it.
they're done, would have went through there and said,
Right.
oh, we're missing this. Or why is these wires not connect, you know, why is these rings
Right.
connectors not on these wires?
Correct. or why is the different? Why is the length not correct?
Why is these?
So now when you did you not call back and you said if they could send you the correct wires
Yeah,
for the
I
20
asked
meter
them,
band?
I called them back and I asked them to send me the 20 meter. Actually, I asked them to 20 into 17, but the main one I was interested in was
20
the
meter
20
band,
meter.
because that was completely off.
And he told me no problem, and started there. And he said, "Are you going to put this on the credit card?" I said, "You going to charge me for
Their
a
mistake,
wire
basically.
that was screwed up?" Well, yes, sir. And I said, well, I'm not paying for it twice. I've already paid for it one time. I'm not paying for it again. And I hung up.
Yep.
Because I had lost my patience.
Right.
I was done with them. I was hoping between you and I together we'd get it up
Right.
and get it to work. If it didn't, I just had to work along with it till I could get a different antenna and put it up, because it was just very poorly done. That's the only thing you can say in a nutshell.
So
it was
right.
very poorly put together. Or they don't put it together, of course, but the parts were very poorly picked out.
Right.
And nobody read the direction manual to figure out what
goes where.
Right, what goes where. Take a look at it. Does it? Yeah. No, we don't have that. Like that little collar piece. That little collar piece really burnt my backside, because it plainly says in the illustration 2 inches.
Yeah,
No place to move them up
to
2
put-
inches.
right.
Nothing to hold them 2 inches up. And so we had to just jerry-rig a deal to make it work.
So MFJ over a couple of dollars with the bands that they should have, cables that they could have sent you, and say, well, we're sorry for the mix-up. It won't happen again. Well, we'll gladly to send them to you.
They could have done it for customer.
But they did not care
No.
if you ever purchase anything from them again
That's
or not.
basically the way I got it. I took it that the people really didn't care. The first two I talked to sounded like I woke them up when I called them.
Yep.
And I asked him about the first one I asked about the collar. And he said, what collar? And I said, look on your bill manual or your instruction manual. You'll see down there where it says that they're supposed to be 2 inches above. I gave him the page number, and he looked at it and he said, I have no idea.
So they're engineered, manufactured, then they have no idea, or they have no idea at all.
No.
So, okay, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna continue on and do some close-ups on the antenna, and then so yeah, this antenna I would personally not recommend it to anybody. It works. We know it works. We tested it.
And that's the only thing. But we had to spend 5 days putting a pre-cut antenna together.
Yep.
That should have been at the most
3-4 hours maybe.
Well, to give it to the fact that we never put one together before, I give it to self, okay, we worked a half a day this day and maybe a half a day the next day, and should have been done. We worked 5 days on this thing.
So basically between this convoluted manual and then the parts simply either not correct, missing, or just simply wouldn't explain it right, we wasted 5 days
basically.
Just
hope, we're hoping, or I'm hoping, that when we get it up on the mast or on the tower, that
at least you get some use
yards. Of course, I'll have a tuner by then, and to help tune it in, and hopefully it'll work. I hate to have something sitting at the house that don't work. And I have bought several products from MFJ in the past, and as a general rule, most of them worked okay. But this has just been a total screw up from the word go, and basically that one guy at least attempted. He at least knew what the length of the antenna
at least that
should be.
he gave you the technical data in the end.
He was able to get that. The rest of them, I'm not sure if they wasn't working at the convenience store down the street or something. I mean, they had no clue as to what to do, and they had no clue who to try. I had the last guy I talked to, third guy I talked to, I talked to 4. The third guy I talked to, he had no clue, but he also knew to send me to this guy that worked for High Gain, I think it is.
High Gain, okay.
And because I said, well, and that was another thing. The first time I called him, I figured it was a High Gain. So I called High Gain originally.
Oh, okay.
And they told me real quick that was an MFJ antenna. High gain had nothing to do with it.
Well,
And
probably
come
for
to
a reason,
find out, High gain built it.
Ah,
Or, you know, put all the
somebody
parts
built
together.
it. Well, put the parts.
Yeah, they
together.
put the parts together. It was
Okay.
their antenna, basically.
Yeah. So we're gonna go next. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna take some close-ups of the antenna to basically put in pictures of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. Well, thank you, Garnet, for you know, the description because
Saying what I think.
we're trying to help. The reason why we're doing this here is we're trying to help other people that they don't fall in the same trap. that
Yeah,
we
or,
just
or
got,
at
you
least
know.
somebody at MFJ needs to go out there and say, quality control, come
Right,
here. We need
right.
to have a meeting.
Well, we tried. You called the MFJ.
Yeah.
We gave them ample chances to
Yeah.
to correct the problem.
They need
which
to get
they-
a hold of somebody
Yeah.
that they need to have. If they don't have, they need to put in quality
Yeah.
control.
Correct.
Quality control
Yeah.
and a little bit of attention to detail would have took care of every bit of this.
Yep.
Everything
Well-
else that there was there, that some of it was aggravating,
Yep.
that could have been set up to do a lot easier than it was. But okay, I could live with that.
Right.
But when you get the wrong length wires, you get pieces missing. You open a box and all of a sudden you're doing a 52 card pickup with all the junk, all the nuts and bolts and
Right.
screws and everything else. And you know, we sat here for probably 15 minutes of going through all them things
Yeah,
and
just
putting them all
figure out
together
what
to
was
match
what,
them all
you know,
up
right.
because
And figure out the loose parts that were laying in the box.
yeah.
There was I believe at least 4 of the insulator rods. They weren't packaged up.
No, they weren't
labeled.
packaged at all. They were just laying
well,
loose.
Of course, you know, we figured out from the length what band they belong to.
Right.
But yet, if you go by the instruction manual, you couldn't identify it because they were outside the bag, and the bag was simply missing. You know, so it's half the hardware. Well, we got this all figured out. So, all right, we're gonna finish this off for now, and then we'll go out there, and I'm gonna do some close-ups on the antenna. All right, we'll get to this later.
Thank you, sir.